Hi, everyone. Welcome to the fireside chat with the one and only CTO of Ripple, David Schwartz. He needs no introduction, but we'll briefly get into that. So before we start, my name is Rachel Wolfson. I'm a journalist and the host of Web3 Deep Dive Podcast. And this has been a great event. What do you guys think? Here in Vegas with the team, and it's wonderful. So thank you guys for being here. Thanks again to Brad. So David, let's get started. I guess before we start, do you want to introduce yourself? You don't need an introduction.
Hello, Las Vegas! You guys, I wasn't sure if that would work. I just always wanted to do that. I'm glad you guys were up for it.
Do it again.
Hello, Las Vegas! You guys having fun? No, seriously, I mean, this is an amazing conference. I love Las Vegas. It's just an amazing place to be. It's easy to get to. We built an entire industry around people who are incredibly good at math. They built this entire city around people who are terrible at math. So it's a perfect fit, right? So I guess I'm David Schwartz. I'm the CTO at Ripple, and I'm just... I am just so happy. I'm just so happy to be here. This is such a pleasure and a joy that I get to do this, and I can't believe they pay me to do this. I mean, I would do this if they didn't. Don't tell them that.
Cool. Okay, David, we're going to get started. So let's start off by talking about Ripple's new stablecoin. What can you tell us about that?
So I'm sure you guys have probably heard that Ripple announced that we're going to launch a stablecoin. We didn't say much beyond that, and there are going to be, follow-up announcements. But, once we started talking to partners and everything, it was going to get out one way or another. So we figured we might as well tell everybody. So one of the things that we noticed is that stablecoins are integral to DeFi. They're a piece along with cryptocurrencies, along with distributed ledgers. These are all different components that solve different problems and that work better together than alone. One of the things that I've discovered is that there's a lot of different problems that people have that require different solutions. XRP is not going to solve every problem in the cryptocurrency space. The XRP Ledger is not going to solve every problem in the cryptocurrency space. That's not how it's going to work. That's not how it worked in the internet space, right? There's no one company, product, or service that is the internet. What makes the internet so great is that there's a wide variety of solutions that appeal to a wide variety of people. And because of that, if you're launching a new product or service and you launch it on the internet, you have a target market of people who have home internet access, who have smartphones. They're internet consumers. And what we need is we need an ecosystem of blockchain cryptocurrency consumers, people who have access to this diverse ecosystem of products and services. Where a stablecoin is particularly important is where the volatility of a digital asset is a minus. There are a lot of applications where the volatility of a digital asset either doesn't matter very much or where it's a plus. Obviously, if you're holding XRP or any other digital asset for speculative value, volatility is fine. If you're a trader, volatility is fine. If you're an exchange, volatility is fine. And even in many payment applications, volatility is not a problem. But there are some applications, particularly in applications that are tightly regulated, where using a digital asset directly for the application is not possible, or at least not possible today. And if we limit ourselves to just the technologies that we most want other people to use, other people are going to have terrible experiences. Would I love for everybody to use XRP for every payment? That would be wonderful. But if I tell you if you don't use XRP for every payment, there's nothing for you here, nobody would be in this room would be completely empty. And so the stablecoin is critical in regulated environments, in many cases where a digital asset can't be used directly. As a sort of intermediary asset, there's cases where if it's cross-jurisdiction, where a digital asset is better. And so we also discovered that there's a lack of good stablecoins on the XRP Ledger. I don't want to criticize. I don't mean that there are no good stablecoins on the XRP Ledger. There are stablecoins on the XRP Ledger, but there isn't sort of one that's kind of grabbed the kind of attention that I think that you need to get that kind of critical mass. And so we thought that launching a stablecoin made sense both for some of our institutional customers that can't use digital assets for payments, markets where digital assets don't work well, areas where volatility is a minus. So we're going to target those types of use cases.
David, is there a name for the Ripple stablecoin by chance?
You know what? You're just going to have to call it the Ripple stablecoin for now. I have been told that I cannot disclose the name on pain of death until. So come to Apex in Amsterdam. And is it June?
It's next month, which is June.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yep. So next month, come to Amsterdam, and I think you will be among the first to know the. Maybe we should start some betting pools about what the name is.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to throw something out there. I mean, you said Ripple stablecoin.
I've heard people call it the Ripple stablecoin. I don't think that's but I mean, we could call it Ripple stablecoin potentially. That's not that's not out of the realm of reason. USD Ripple, USDR, USDX. So yeah, you guys can come up with a betting pool of all the possible names. Make sure to have a none of the above category in case you guys didn't get it, and best of luck.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Let the community decide what the Ripple stablecoin should be called. Schwartz coin, yeah, that would be
yeah, I don't think I can push that through the rest of the company. I don't know, maybe.
You guys will have to come to Apex to find out, apparently.
Come to Apex.
So.
I want to see every single one of you. I know who you are.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the importance of automated market makers, also known as AMM. So what is an automated market maker?
So an automated market maker is something that sort of adapts the time between buyers and sellers. These exist in many traditional markets. If you have a broker and you go to buy stock in a publicly traded company like IBM, there is a healthy order book of people who will buy the stock from you and people who will sell the stock to you. And there are professionals whose job is to make sure that that market exists. They trade on the exchanges, and they generally get preferential access to the exchange in exchange for committing to keep those sort of spreads tight on the market. An automated market maker is the decentralized version of the same thing. It's always willing to buy and sell an asset so that if I want to buy an asset today, and maybe Rachel wants to sell it tomorrow, I may not want to wait until she's ready to sell, and she may not want to wait until I'm ready to buy. So an automated market maker has a pile of two assets, let's say USD and XRP, and it's always willing to buy XRP, and it's always willing to sell XRP at some price so that other people can trade whenever they want. But there's another important thing about automated market makers compared to like the more traditional market makers. Because the automated market makers are implemented on decentralized blockchains, you can participate in an automated market maker not just by trading with it, but also by a sort of the equivalent of lending it assets. So remember I said the automated market maker has to have some USD so it can buy XRP whenever someone wants to sell it. And it has to have some XRP so it can sell XRP whenever someone else wants to buy it. And what an automated market maker does is it makes a return. It generates revenue from various different mechanisms, including the spreads on its trades. And if you lend it your XRP or your USD or both, then you own a sort of share in the automated market maker, and you benefit from the trades that automated market maker makes. And one of the things that I've noticed in this space is that a lot of ideas that don't seem that interesting from one side are very interesting from the other side. Like, for example, there are these lending protocols that are mostly so that like rich people can spend their Bitcoin without having like to pay income tax. That's not super exciting, right? Like you can borrow against it and that's not taxable, and like really rich people want to hold their Bitcoin, they've made millions of dollars and now they can buy groceries without paying taxes. That's not super exciting. But on the flip side of that is someone who's lending the dollars that has a very valuable collateral, who has a secure loan that they're making an interest rate on, and that person might have had no ability to get a return on their assets. The counterparties to the AMM traders, and maybe you don't care about traders and speculators and arbitrageurs being able to make money, but it's interesting that you have a way at a fairly low and well understood risk to get a return on your assets by participating on the other side of the AMM.
Great, that's a good explanation. So Ripple's AMM hit mainnet in March, correct?
Yeah, Ripple's implementation of an AMM for the XRP Ledger, I think it activated in March.
Okay, so what does that mean exactly? I mean,
It means that there's AMM functionality now built in as core functionality in the XRP ledger. And this automated market maker allows you to participate essentially by lending assets to it or trading them for an ownership interest in the AMM. And it integrates with other XRP ledger features like the order book.
Any other key features that you want to mention?
Excuse me.
AMM?
Yeah, there are a couple of features. So we didn't just like take, there's a lot of other decentralized exchanges that have automated market makers built into them, and we didn't want to just do the same thing that everybody else is doing. And so we looked at some of the unique features of the XRP ledger and some, more creative ideas about how we could make things more interesting. So a couple of key features. Number one, it inherits all of the benefits of being on the XRP ledger, and some of those are really important. So one of them is transactions are fast. When when an arbitrager is trading against, an arbitrager is someone who basically wants to buy an asset for an unusually low price or sell an asset at an unusually high price, and they're very important to the AMM ecosystem. The AMM ecosystem won't work without arbitragers to trade against the AMM. They take some risk because their trade takes some time to close. The XRP ledger transactions are very fast, typically completed within 5 seconds. That minimizes the risk that arbitragers take and allows them to arbitrage much more accurately, which improves the performance for everybody and improves the behavior for both traders and liquidity providers. There's also no block producers on the XRP ledger. There's no dictator who decides which transactions go in which block or what transactions go in which order. If you know about other blockchains, they have miners who do something called MEV. Basically what that means is they take the transactions and they inject their own transactions in them or reorder them to their own advantage, and that hurts everybody else in the ecosystem. That's not possible on the XRP ledger. So we sort of inherit low transaction fees are also important. So if I'm an arbitrager and I'm only going to make $10 on an arbitrage transaction, if the transaction fee is $12, I'm not going to submit the transaction, and that's an opportunity that's lost to the ecosystem. And there are a lot of those, right? If you can only transact every minute for a cost of $10, that's a lot lower than if you can transact every 5 seconds at essentially a fraction of a penny. And so those are differences that the AMM just sort of gets just by virtue of being on the XRP ledger. But it has a couple of design differences, and I think the two most important is, number one, it integrates with the existing order books on the XRP ledger. Because the XRP ledger is so fast and so cheap, it can trade through order books, which have a similar function to the AMM, they're just not automated. And there's a synergy of having both of those in the same ecosystem because they're good at different things. So for example, AMMs provide liquidity all of the time, automatically, but they're not very capital efficient, and they're not very good for assets that aren't that volatile, like dollars. Whereas the order book is really good for assets that are not that volatile, and it's really capital efficient. So having both of those in the same ecosystem, I think they're really gonna, the synergy is really going to allow the AMMs to be more efficient and the order books to trade more efficiently. The last feature, which I think is really cool, this is something that we came up with that's nowhere else in the world unless they copied us, called the continuous auction mechanism. And so the way this works is, this idea is just so cool. So the idea is that arbitragers are necessary to the ecosystem. AMMs couldn't work without them, but they're also slightly parasitic. In the sense that an arbitrager makes a profit by trading against an automated market maker. So they're sort of like necessary, but to an extent, they're also taking revenue away. What the XRP Ledger's AMM implementation does is it gives special execution privileges to one person. They basically bid for an auction slot that allows them advantages when they're the arbitrager. So the idea is, if you're an arbitrager and you're going to make $100 a day, you might be willing to pay $90 a day for that slot, or $80 a day for that slot. And so a significant percentage of the money that the arbitrager would have made instead goes to the liquidity providers. And the automated market maker implementation is really, the way we designed it, is totally biased in favor of the liquidity providers, because they're the people who we hope will drive the ecosystem.
Yeah, that's interesting. So with these unique features, was that something that you kind of came up with on your, like, how did you think about that?
That's kind of why I'm so excited about, I mean, I've been trading Forex and doing early versions of like AI trading bots in different markets for more than 30 years now, just as something that I've always thought was fun. This really is just right in the side of the space of what I think is exciting. And I'll just share a little bit of the reason why I think it's exciting. As you know, digital assets are extremely volatile. Like they move. And there's logical economic reasons why that should be impossible. You would not expect, for example, if you thought Bitcoin was going to be $50,000 tomorrow, nobody would sell Bitcoin for $49,000 today. They would just wait till tomorrow. They would borrow money if they had to. Like, it is illogical to have the amount of volatility that we have. People should behave differently than they do in response to that volatility, and objectively they don't. And so it's interesting to me to see these sort of hacks. What the AMM does is it turns volatility into yield. It's a volatility harvesting algorithm. And really, that's what exchanges are. If you look at an exchange, like a centralized exchange, like Kraken or Coinbase, you'll notice their trade volumes go up with volatility, and their revenue goes up with trade volumes. They're volatility harvesting businesses, and it's just amazing to me that no matter how much volatility people harvest, there still seems to be no shortage of it, right? Like, that's fascinating to me. Like, mathematically, that shouldn't be the case. Like, we should be using up the the more volatility there is, the more people who can build businesses that convert the volatility into money. When you convert volatility into money, you do reduce the volatility. So why aren't we, is there an endless supply of volatility? It's intellectually fascinating to me. And so that's why I'm more interested in this than like I objectively should be.
Cool, okay. Well, I'm sure everyone's excited to hear more about
Maybe I spread that excitement about weird math.
Yeah. Everyone's excited for the AMM.
Yeah, and it's live now. So like you can basically trade other assets for shares of an AMM, and then when that AMM sells a continuous auction slot, the value of your share of the AMM goes up. I just want to be clear that it is not free of risk, and that when you buy or sell an asset, you should understand the risk profile. There is a risk profile, but what's interesting with the AMM is like when you analyze the risk, it's hard to know what to compare it to. Like, I'll give you an example. Let's say today you have 10,000 XRP. You do a bunch of trades, and tomorrow you have 9,000 XRP, but it's worth 30% more than the XRP was, the 10,000 XRP yesterday, because XRP went up. Was that a good trading strategy, or was it a terrible trading strategy? So the problem, this is another one of the reasons that this is so fascinating, is that in determining whether a trading strategy is successful or whether risks, like whether we did well or badly, you need a reference to compare it to. And one reference would be, I didn't do anything at all. Another reference would be, I just held XRP. Another reference might be, I bought a stock market index fund. Where you have these volatile assets and you're measuring based on them. It's very hard to process the risks because there's no good baseline to compare them to. So just be smart.
Yeah, good advice. Let's talk about building on XRP Ledger. Can we talk about new developments there?
Well, so the AMM obviously is new. I think we have forthcoming protocol changes that are being discussed. One of them possibility is the lending protocol, which is, it's interesting because it's a sort of semi-DeFi application. The loans sort of take place in the outside world, and the ownership of the portfolio of loans and the revenue return to investors and whether there's tradable liquidity tokens, those are all on the ledger. So that's sort of interesting. We're very interested in applications that are between DeFi and TradFi. Real-world asset tokenization is another example of an application that kind of brings the TradFi and DeFi worlds together. We think that that's something that like Ripple is in a good position to do, and we think that those kinds of use cases make sense for the XRP Ledger. Another thing that I'm really excited about is AI use cases in the blockchain space. Some of them are very obvious and are definitely going to work, but may not be as exciting. One of them is chatbots that can take an enormous amount of information and tune it to like the particular way that you need to know. Like, you may have a lot of expertise in banking, or you may have expertise in computer science, or you may have expertise in blockchain, or you may have none of those things. It's very hard for me, let's say, to explain AMMs for every possible portfolio, every possible combination of things that people might want to know about the AMM and existing information that they might have. AI chatbots are really good at taking information that's very, very detailed, and then you saying, how would I explain this to someone who's been in the automotive industry for 20 years? They're really good at tuning information to particular people, and if we want mass adoption, which we definitely do, I'm very excited about what chatbots can do. I'm also very I'm excited about the opportunity to sort of democratize development. There's a very high barrier to entry to developing almost anything in the blockchain space. We're getting to the point where we can sort of develop toolkits so that people can piece things together, but it's very difficult. I'm hopeful that AI technologies will be able to sort of democratize the development side. That's a little bit more speculative. I'm not sure that it will be able to do that. There will probably still be security issues. But the other interesting thing is things like pattern analysis to look for suspicious behavior, to help managing your own sort of portfolio of investments. Right now, investment advice is like very difficult to come by and very difficult to sort out. I think there's the potential for AI to provide more objective and tuned advice about how people should move money around, what risks they're taking, and what risks they should be taking. So that I think is just incredibly exciting. The other thing that I will say is interoperability. I think is big. There's projects in the short term, Axelar, Corium, that are like providing asset portability. But again, I think that the way we have a compelling ecosystem and the way we have consumers who are like, you want to build a project on the XRP Ledger, anywhere in the blockchain space, you need a target market, right? Now, if you would come up with the idea for Twitter in the year 2000, there's no target market, there's no customers. You couldn't put smartphones in people's hands. Like Twitter can't put smartphones in people's hands. So I think the other thing is just this interoperability, these universal tools, so that there exists a target market who can take from these products and services the things that they find interesting. We don't have that yet, and we need those things.
Yeah. So let's unpack this a little bit because we've still got a few minutes. AI chatbots, are those actually being used today on the XRP Ledger?
Yeah, there are, and so I'll explain the way that works, and it's very interesting. There's sort of a multi-step process. Generally, what happens is there's companies like Google, like OpenAI, that build these large language models. GPT-4 is an example of a large language model. It costs an enormous amount of money to build these large language models, on the order of $1 billion. In the short term, like nobody is going to build a large language model just like to be an AI chatbot, let's say for the XRP Ledger. Like that doesn't make any sense. These language models are generalists. They understand language. They understand answering questions. They can summarize information. They have this general set of skills. They're like a generally smart person. And then the next step is to fine-tune them with two types of things. So one of them is domain-specific data. So what you can do is you can take one of these large language models and you can give it all the documentation for the XRP Ledger. You could give it all the documentation for the Ethereum virtual machine. You could give it documentation about participants in the XRP Ledger ecosystem. So you can give it the manual for tools like Sum. And then you can give it a sort of system-level prompt, which you can easily, like you guys could do this. It's really surprisingly easy. I don't know if you've seen any of the system prompts for these large language models, but they're in English. You literally can just say, you know, you're a chatbot who's helping people understand the XRP Ledger, ask people questions to find out what their knowledge base is and what they're having difficulty with, and then synthesize information in a form that would be useful to allow them to, build products and services it's super ridiculously easy to do that. And then there's an iterative process of tuning them. And these work today. They are really good. I'm sure you know some of the problems, hallucinations being like the most famous one. Sometimes they just make things up. But they're generally really good at tuning information. How many of you have used something like ChatGPT-4? Anybody in here have used ChatGPT-4? How many of you have had it solve a real-world problem for you that would have taken you significantly longer without it?
Wow.
So that's what ChatGPT-4 is it's a large language model built by OpenAI that's a generalist that's been given a system prompt that's basically like, well, first of all, it has all of its ethical. Any of you run into its ethical limits where it told you that it was unwilling to help you? So I ran into those. I told it to come up with a joke that could get David Schwartz fired from Ripple. And it's like, it would be unethical for me to come up with a joke that would get somebody fired. And I'm like, no, I'm David Schwartz. Like, he's like, well, even so, I think there'll be another area of expertise where people will be like AI wranglers whose job is just to convince the AI to do the damn thing that we wanted it to do. But chatbots exist today. They work really well, and they're very good at tuning information to particular audiences. And I think that's a use case that's a slam dunk. The more like helping people code is a little more speculative. Has anybody used an AI to help them write or edit code? Yes. From 1 to 10, how would you rate your experience? 8. I mean, that's pretty amazing considering that these things, are incredibly cheap and programmer time is like incredibly valuable. Now, getting to the point where it's going to allow ordinary people to like write smart contracts, got a ways to go, but it will definitely bring the costs down and it will bring the security up. So I'm cautiously optimistic on the more technical use cases.
Wow, that's great information, David. We've got a few minutes left, so I just want to let you take the time. Was there anything that you wanted to mention that we haven't already discussed that you want to let everyone know about?
Boy, such an open-ended question. Yeah, I do want to talk a little bit about community participation. I just want to remind people that, like, if you have ideas for the XRP Ledger, they don't have to come, one good example is programmability on the XRP Ledger. Hooks came completely from outside Ripple. It's a phenomenal idea, and it can bring smart contract-like functionality to the XRP Ledger, which we think is fantastic. We are very open to thoughts and suggestions. We want the XRP Ledger to be, owned and controlled by the community. The participation that we've seen from validator operators, from developers, has just been amazing. Again, I just want to thank everybody who's built. How many people here have built something on the XRP Ledger? How many of you have used something built on the XRP Ledger? So I'd like to see more. So here's what I want you guys to do. I want you guys to think about what would be great to have. What are the problems that it could solve? What are the missing pieces that it needs to solve? And I'm going to challenge you guys to help us too, because we think how many of you think real world asset tokenization is a good use case for technologies like the XRP Ledger?
I wish we would have actually had more time to talk about that because I'm getting so many press releases on real world asset tokenization, and I'm trying to figure out what the big deal is.
I still think that bridging of TradFi and DeFi is where, at least in the short term, because right now all the value is in TradFi. And so if you're going to say there's trillions of dollars over here, but we're going to do something all the way over here, that's not as good as let's connect these things together.
Yeah. Well, David, unfortunately, we are running out of time. I think we're out of time, and there's so much more that we could discuss, but you're going to be at Apex, you're going to be at Consensus, you're going to be at all these events around the world, so just encourage everybody to join and talk to you at those events and this event.
Thank you for doing this, yeah. I really appreciate it.
Of course,
Thanks
my
to all
pleasure.
of you for
Thanks,
coming.
everyone. Thank you. Cool. Enjoy Vegas.